I'm actually really pleased to be here because this is my 4th Hackcon, but it's actually the first one where I'm going to make a proper talk, and that's really cool because although I live in New York now with DevPost, and I'm with DevPost, I'm from Wales. I'm from Newport, if anyone knows it. So, yeah. So lock up your laptops, basically. But by way of introduction, so I'm Richard. I run the in-person hackathon side of DevPost. So that means I work with a lot of people that are using our tool to get the most out of their hackathons and to show off all of the amazing things they've built. So I've been working on hackathons pretty much full-time since about 2007 in a variety of different jobs. So definitely got some kind of travel miles and some war stories on the clock that I'm kind of happy to share with you all. I also have a habit of looking really awkward in hackathon photos, and I promise that wasn't posed. They just kind of caught me like that. So I just wanted to introduce ourselves a little bit. So can I just see like a show of hands? Is anyone here like hasn't heard of DevPost or ChallengePost, doesn't kind of know who we are and what we do? Awesome, cool. Well, I want to make sure we get a chance to talk later as well. Anyway, I can explain things in more detail to you. But just as a quick refresher with DevPost, we used to be called ChallengePost, and a few people have asked me over lunch about the rebrand. And we did that because when the company started, we were really focused on all kinds of different challenges. So we ran kind of software-related challenges, but we also ran video competitions and competitions to design new coins. But when I joined the company, we focused down on really solely taking care of technologists and really doing everything we could to showcase what developers are building and the different things they're working on. So the rebrand is more about correcting our name of our company to more accurately reflect what you know us to do. So we're a platform that's always free for hackathons. We power both in-person and online hackathons. It's really fun. We're really proud to have powered over 1,000. So definitely got some experience there, and like I've tried to like make our product really helpful. And we have well over 400,000 people like yourselves that are members of our community that want to check out the things that get built at your events. So it's all about trying to increase your impact. So that's kind of a little bit about us. And I promise this talk isn't going to be a sales pitch about DevPost. So I want to talk about a lot of other stuff, but I just wanted to make sure you are up to speed. But if you're not familiar with it, here's kind of the gallery and how it all looks. So it's all about kind of checking out the sponsor prizes, and we're going to talk a little bit about this and really seeing the different projects that were built. And I'll come back to this in a little more detail, but I was thinking on the plane right here, like what should we talk about today? And as I mentioned, I just came back from holiday, and yesterday I was looking at this. And are you all familiar with David? So this is David, and you know this is Michelangelo who created David. But the guy I really wanted to talk about today was actually Lorenzo the Great. Anyone know who this guy is? So he was the Prince of Florence and of the Vici family who financed a lot of the artists of the day. And most importantly, I think using our lexicon, sponsored them. So he was one of the major sponsors of artists and creative people of that era and was really helping them go on to create things that hundreds of years later we all look at, such as David. So I wanted to see, like looking back on that, what could we do to help our own sponsors both have more impact on our work so we get to help the people that create the Davids of our era. So what does that really mean then? So what that means for us is we're going to talk about sponsorship. And what we're going to talk about is how we can help our sponsors be more effective, both in terms of getting success for themselves at your events, but also in terms of helping you have better sponsors. Because I think if you have better sponsors at your events, they're going to actually really increase the quality of the events and have a lot of positive impact for your attendees. Hackathons have gone through a massive period of growth over the last few years. And what I'm really kind of strongly concerned that we all focus on is making sure that we're able to maintain that growth by working with our sponsors to make sure that the sponsors get a lot of value out of this and they're able to add a lot of value. At some point, the sponsors do have to look at what is it that they get in return for sponsoring hackathons. So we really need to focus our energy on community and making sure that we help our sponsors be better so that they get more value, and then they'll continue to support the events and kind of really build things up. So a few kind of quick thoughts, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some practical advice that you can do both before your hackathon, during your hackathon, and then after your hackathon to make sure that you're really helping your sponsors be successful. So a kind of few things to think about are, what is it that makes a successful sponsor? And I think that it's an open secret within the hackathon world that some sponsors are really great, most sponsors aren't. And I'm sure we've all interacted with a sponsor at an event that really kind of wasn't on their game, wasn't adding a lot of value, and also probably wasn't getting a lot of value at the sponsorship. So what we need to do is equip our sponsors and equip the people that they send to represent them at the events. We need to equip them with the tools to be more successful so that we can actually help better sponsors. So that's kind of what I want us to think about. So let's just dive in. We'll look at some of these things, and then we can talk about some of these different areas in more detail. So let's start with before the event. So before the event, the most important thing is to onboard your sponsors properly. And this is something that I'm sure many of you do, but does every sponsor know where your hackathon is? It's a really important question. So you send a lot of information out to hackers about kind of when to get on the bus, where the event is, when it's taking place. Make sure your sponsors also have that information. You know, as someone who attends a lot of hackathons, I've definitely been walking around campuses looking for the right room, trying to find the hackathon. And I think I know these days what a hackathon looks like, so I can usually track it down. But make sure that sponsors have that key logistical information, the when and the where, the schedule of the hackathon. Super important that they have that. So definitely make sure that they're onboarded properly. That should mean phone calls, emails. You know, you could do webinars, for example. Just make sure you prepare your sponsors. So some things that you should also then be telling them to do at that time. It's absolutely the right time to work on your developer documentation. So let's assume that your sponsor wants their technology platform used. And it's a very important thing to note at this point that that's not the goal of all the sponsors, right? People sponsor your events for many different reasons. Some of them are looking to get their technology used, maybe have their API adopted. Others might be looking to hire new developers, or maybe even just get the positive branding of being associated with your hackathon. So one of the most important questions you're going to ask a sponsor is, why are you sponsoring? What do you want to get out of this? Like, what is in this event for you? Really important that you find out that information so you can help tailor the experience for them and make sure that they can do it in a way that helps you. So if it's a technology-related sponsor, tell them to update their developer docs. Make sure that it's updated for the latest version of the API, the latest endpoints. You'll be amazed how in API companies this kind of often falls off the calendar of things that get done. It's a good time to prioritize it and make sure it's done. Picking prizes. So how many of your sponsors are giving out a prize at your event? Yeah? What was the kind of prizes they were giving away? Did people give away good things like iPads? What did they give away?
Lego sets.
Oh, Lego sets. So Lego sets is a cool prize, right? So one of the things I totally encourage you to do is guide the sponsors in terms of what they give away. You should know what prize they're going to give, and they should also have to clear it with you, I believe. So make sure that they talk to you about it. I think the best kind of prizes are prizes that validate hackers' learning and encourage them to build more. And to give you a practical example, I saw a healthcare analytics sponsor recently. So they have an API where you can actually look up medical or healthcare information based on scientific research. So they had a bioinformatics prize. And what they gave away was a whole sensor set attached to an Arduino that gave you 9 different body readings. So if you're the kind of developer that's interested in building that stuff, that's an awesome prize, right? Because suddenly you've not only been validated for actually building in this area, but now you have a ton of tools at your disposal so you can build more. This was also not the prize they were originally intended to give, but we worked with them and really helped them get a better prize. So I would encourage you to work with them to get great prizes. The other thing to really think about as well is tell them to, no one's going to use their technology or interact with that company or want to work there simply because they're a sponsor. Right? The world doesn't work like that. They need to sell. So help them think about kind of why they're there. Why should a developer care about that company? Why should they be interested in coming to work at DevPost, for example? So tell them to prepare that and think about that. They need to think about the why of their hackathon. So that's kind of like a few good points to think about before the event, right? So make sure they have all the information, but then encourage them to review the developer documentation. Make sure they've selected a really great prize. They're not just kind of giving away something that's simple or something that's boring, but also that they've really got a strong argument as to why it's worth interacting with them. So during the hackathon, right? So during the hackathon, it's absolutely the most critical time for a sponsor to get the amount of value that they need. And it's also the time where they're going to interact with developers at your event and really add a lot of value to them. So this is a really critical time. So a few quick points about this. Their goal should always be to help hackers. So one of the key things about developer evangelism is if you help people succeed, they will think well of you. And it's not any more simple than, it's not more complicated than that, right? So make sure that your sponsors are instructed ideally to bring as many technical skilled people as possible, even if they're not providing a particular technology to be used at the event, because the more people they're able to help, the more value they can add, and the better it is for them, to be frank. So really kind of make sure that's that. This is like my #1 tip for hackathon sponsors. I've seen a company who will remain nameless sponsor a number of hackathons, and they bring all this amazing furniture, and they build this incredible booth. It's got like a backdrop, and it's such a nice place to hang out that they stay there. Like the whole weekend, they just camp out. So always remind your sponsors that the event is taking place out there, right? It's taking place on the floor, in the rooms, and the desk is somewhere where they can be found and where people can come to them to help, but it's not a proxy for their hotel room, right? It's not like a place where they should be camping out and where they should be staying. They're there so that people can find them and they can interact with people. So tell them to get out from behind the desk, as Nick would say, but also make sure that like they're not just camping out there and it's not just a place where they're hanging out and talking to their colleagues. It should be a place where developers can go and interact with them. So that's really important. Another key tip for sponsors that you should be telling them is think about when you're going to need help. So a lot of sponsors, they may fly into your event. They come and set up Saturday morning for the kickoff. Maybe they make a quick pitch on stage. And about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, all the work's going on. They think, well, maybe we'll go and check out the hotel, perhaps get something to eat. Like, that's not really helpful, right? So when are your developers going to need help? When are they going to want to interact with the sponsors? That's probably not going to be at 2 p.m. on a Saturday afternoon. It's much more likely to be 2 a.m. Sunday morning. It's much more likely to be 6 a.m. Sunday morning, 11 p.m. Saturday night. So definitely encourage sponsors to try and keep hours that help at hackathons. There's nothing worse than walking into like a sponsor area at a hackathon at 7 p.m. on a Saturday evening and seeing it completely empty with a lot of post-it notes saying, we've gone to the hotel, tweet at us if you need help. Like, that's not helpful, right? That's not creating impact. So definitely encourage sponsors to try and keep the hackers' hours if possible. So those are kind of the big tips for during the event. Make sure that it's all about helping hackers. Make sure they get out and participate in the event. And also try and be available at times where you can be available to developers and be a resource to them. So I think one of the things that we all notice, and whenever I hang out with other evangelists, one of the things a lot of people at times we talk about it is tiredness, right? And hackathons are tiring. Like, who's exhausted after their hackathon? Right, like, me too. It's so crazy. Like, Mondays, I can barely move. But there are really important things that we need to do post-event. And I think one of the things that you should all think about doing is a lot of follow-up with your sponsors after the event. Make sure that you're sending information to them. And I'm going to show you something in a second that may help you there. But also, make sure that they're doing the follow-up necessary as well. So one of the key things to help your sponsors do is send them links to the projects. So the projects and everything that gets built at your hackathon, you want to have this publicized somewhere, right? So obviously DevPost provides a tool to do that, but if for some reason you're not using our site, make sure they're up somewhere else. Make sure that people can find them, right? Obviously we try and solve that problem, but if they're not on our site, make sure they're somewhere. Make sure they're up where people can find them. And then send those links, package them up for your different sponsors, send them to the sponsors and encourage the sponsors to share them. If you take sponsorship money from a large company, the people that come to your event and the people that agree to sponsor it, they probably represent a pretty small niche of these companies, the people that understand what hackathons are and what's going on at these events. What you want to do is equip them to evangelize internally and share what these events are about and why other people in the company should care about them. So the best way to do that is to help tell the stories of what was created. So send them links to awesome projects so that they can share that within their company and say to their bosses, hey, you know that event that you agreed to let me sponsor? Here are some examples of the awesome kind of things that were made there. Like, that gets people interesting. Stats about there were 150 people there and we got this number of activations. They're important, but they're not as powerful as stories of awesome things that were created. So make sure that that's done. The other thing that you should push your sponsors to do is get prizes out quickly. If a hacker won a prize from a sponsor at your hackathon, make sure that if that prize doesn't get given to them at the hackathon, that it gets out really quickly. It's really, really important, and sponsors they're like everyone, they get tired, so after the event, perhaps doesn't feel like the biggest priority for them when they're trying to catch up on other stuff, but it's really, really bad if people don't get their prizes in a prompt manner, and it looks terrible. So I would definitely encourage you, push your sponsors to make sure those prizes get out. Nothing is more frustrating for you as organizers as well, right? When you're getting message from the hackers, hey, we never got the prize that Richard said he was going to give us, that's not a fun conversation. So those are definitely the tips for post the event. Make sure that you share everything, get those prizes out, and do that follow-up. So definitely send information and interview them. Get kind of response back from your sponsors, feed that into your event planning, and also use it as an opportunity to expand for the next event. Talk to them about when your next plan is. Is this going to become an annual hackathon? Can we get you involved for next year? How can we make this more successful? How can we deepen this relationship? Have those kind of conversations immediately after the hackathon. If someone's had a great time at the event, that's the time that you want to start talking to them about the next sponsorship. So really encourage you to kick those conversations off immediately. I just wanted to show this again, which was kind of really focus here. So if you look at this event, and this was from a TechCrunch hackathon, but it could easily be any college hackathon, where you will see a lot of the sponsor prizes. So what you want to do is send this page to the sponsors, because this page enables someone who works for Microsoft to send around a link where anyone else in Microsoft can check out all the projects that applied for their prize at the hackathon. So make sure that that's there. And this is the last thing that I want to show you from DevPost, which we're pretty excited about. And this is our analytics dashboard. So this is particularly useful for technology companies. And what this shows them is, across the entire DevPost network, who has built what, where, with their technology. So we're looking at one particular technology company here. You can see the hackers that have been building with it, the projects they've been building, and the different events where their technology has been used. This is available completely for free at all of your events, and completely for free for your sponsors. So your sponsors can suddenly have access to analytics from your event that's live, is also correlated with all of their other hackathons and the other events and other places where their technology is being used. So it's a really interesting way to add more value to them and help them do that reporting. So I'm happy to take any questions. Also happy to show anything else or answer any other things. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you so much, Richard. So, do we have any questions for Richard? One from Nick. Nick, you are on fire today. Be more Nick, hashtag.
Hi, Richard. When is the best time to collect feedback from sponsors?
I think the best time is you should set up that feedback call immediately following the event. You could even go around, actually talk to the sponsors at the event, ask them to open their calendars. Everyone can open their calendar and set a time for maybe the Tuesday or Wednesday following. Don't leave it very long, because you want those reflections to be fresh in their mind. Mondays can be a little difficult. A lot of people take Monday off if they've worked the weekend. But definitely try and set that for Tuesday, Wednesday. But make sure you get it on the calendar as quickly as possible.
Thank you. Next question. No one? Come on, everyone, loads of questions to sponsors yesterday. Wow, okay, you've gotten off lightly. Give Richard a huge round of applause.